Dear viewers and listeners, welcome to Riga Security Forum. This is episode number 2, and this episode will be devoted to NATO. And guess what? NATO and NATO's Southern Neighbourhood. And today, our guest is Javier Colomina, who is NATO's Assistant Secretary General for Political Affairs and also Security Policy. And furthermore, he is also the Secretary General's Special Representative for Southern Neighbourhood of NATO. Welcome, Javier.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me in the Riga Security Forum. It's for me a pleasure to talk in this podcast. I am, as you said, the Assistant Secretary General for Political Affairs and Security Policy, and particularly since the summer I was appointed the Special Representative for NATO for the Southern Neighbourhood, which is quite a deal. It is quite an exceptional thing that we decided to do only a couple of months ago. It is a process that started a few months before the Vilnius summit, already a year and a half ago, where some allies decided that the organization needed to talk more thoroughly and in more depth on the South. The South has always been part of the agenda in NATO, but not in such a priority manner. Therefore, we launched in Vilnius. We took the decision to launch a deep reflection process on the South. That deep reflection process started by the previous Secretary General, Jens Stoltenberg, appointing a group of independent experts that explore what were the opportunities and the challenges for NATO in the South. They produced an independent report. On the basis of that independent report, the allies started the work to actually produce, and then the heads of state approve in Washington an action plan on the South. And the last recommendation of that action plan was actually to appoint a special representative for the Southern Neighbourhood to implement that action plan. So I'll say a couple of words on that. I'm sure you have then questions about it. First, what is the South for us? NATO has 35 partners all over the world. Among those partners, we have 12 partners in the South, 7 in the Mediterranean that go from Mauritania to Israel, 4 in the Gulf, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Emirates, plus Iraq. The South is those partners. The South is North Africa, Middle East, and the Sahel. Those are the three regions that we will be working on. The action plan gives me responsibilities as well to talk with countries and actors that are not our partners, the ones that I would believe or allies would decide that are particularly impactful for the cooperation with the South and for the mandate and mission that NATO has. And we are right now implementing that through different pillars of action, from political dialogue to practical cooperation, to visibility and public communication, to the relationship with international organizations. It's quite a robust package. It's something that, as I said at the beginning, is quite exceptional in the way it was thought from the beginning, and it ended up in a robust mandate behind my own appointment. I will be coordinating all the activities that NATO will be doing in the South, which is a lot to say because this is a very big and with lots of parts organization, not just on the civilian side, but also on the military side. I've been already traveling and meeting with everybody that I had to meet with in the House. I think the expectations are quite high, both from the South and our partners and from the allies. And I do believe that it will be a priority for the years to come, not a priority that needs to rival with the support to Ukraine, which is the utmost priority of the organization I represent and will continue to be the utmost priority. But I think the South will be also a priority for the years to come.
Thank you very much for this intro statement. But may I ask as to why NATO now decided to, broaden its focus on the south? Because, as you rightly mentioned, people here in the Baltic, especially concerned about Ukraine, about the collective defense, and now we have additional sort of, smaller priority, but nevertheless, why this is the moment? You thought that it started in Vilnius summit and now at Washington summit, so it was expanded. So Europe also was created and also action plan adopted. Why no?
Well, I have to start by saying that the South has been part of the agenda of NATO for many years. With many of these partners, we have had a partnership that started 30 years ago. Actually, with the Mediterranean dialogue, the partners that we have in the Mediterranean, we are celebrating this year, 2024, our 30th anniversary. And with the partners in the Gulf, our 20th anniversary. So it's a long-standing relationship. Then the question that should be answered is why now we decided to give more priority to the South, why now we decided to give more political leverage, why now we decided to look more deeply into the South. And there's several factors, but basically I would say that the challenges and the threats that we see in the South are really affecting Euro-Atlantic stability. Everything that affects our stability is very relevant for the organization. That is our mandate. It is a political and military organization that basically tries to cope with challenges and threats that affect the stability of our region. Second, we see that among those challenges and threats, there is a big presence of geostrategic actors that are also present in the Eastern Front, particularly Russia, which is very present in the South and creates a lot of problems. And third, I would say that the current situation in the Middle East particularly has created a political will within the allies to actually be more political, be more present, and have at least an individual, a special representative that could be able to engage more and better with the South, even though it's not for NATO to have a role in the Middle East. There are already many other actors there. We can support the efforts that others are doing in trying to avoid escalation, trying to go for a cessation of hostilities. But at the end of the day, it's not our role. But yes, we can have a better understanding, and yes, we should engage more and better with actors in the South.
Thank you. And you rightly mentioned that this is not a completely new sphere, because the Mediterranean Dialogue was created in 1994 and the Istanbul Cooperation Initiative in 2004. So there's 3 and 2 decades behind us. But has NATO done an assessment? Has the cooperation so far has been to what was expected in 1994 and 2004?
Well, I think the level of cooperation is satisfactory in general, but I think we could get definitely to better levels. I think we could be more efficient ourselves, we could be better coordinated ourselves, and we could also be increasing the cooperation and the political dialogue with these partners, both at the civilian and the military side. I think that probably the good thing of the appointment was actually the action plan that was approved together with the appointment by the heads of state in the Washington summit. Actually, what they approved was the action plan, and they only recommended through the action plan to appoint a special representative. It's clear that there are things that we could do better as anyone. Even if the assessment of 30 years of cooperation with the Mediterranean Dialogue and 20 years with the Istanbul Cooperation Initiative, the one we have in the Gulf, is at the end of the day a positive one. But yes, I do believe that there is margin of maneuver, and that's what I'm trying to do right now.
Thank you. And about values, the Middle East and North Africa is not known for democracy to be thriving there. What about the rule of law and democracy? To what extent NATO will adhere in engaging these countries? Because obviously we have Israel as a part of the Mediterranean dialogue, but other countries have quite a space for progress when it comes to values we adhere in the West.
Well, principles and values is a very important thing for the organization I represent. They're well covered in the preamble of the Washington Treaty, and they really guide our actions in general with our allies and with most of our partners. But at the same time, the organization I represent, as I said before, is a political and military organization. It's basically a geostrategic organization. We believe that we are here basically to protect, to guarantee the stability of the region. In order to do that, we need to talk with everyone. We need to engage everyone. We need to help bring stability to everyone. If that stability actually projects stability also in the Euro-Atlantic area. So I believe that there will be margin of maneuver to talk about those things, but at the same time, I do believe that we really need to talk about practical aspects of the cooperation and practical ways to increase the security of the region.
Right, so I hope that NATO will succeed in that as well. Another point about the practical benefits when it comes to engaging with the partners. I think it's not widely known that some of these countries have contributed to NATO's missions in Libya, in Kosovo, in Bosnia, Herzegovina, and in Afghanistan. So the countries, I mean, that are part of the MD and the Istanbul Cooperation Initiative. Could you name also some other current initiatives or some prospects where these countries could contribute?
Well, our partners in the South have indeed, as you said, contributed to many activities, missions and operations. That is part of what our partners do for the organization. But at the same time, I have to say, they provide very valuable assessments on how things evolve in the regions. As I often say, there are eyes in the region. NATO doesn't have embassies or offices in most of the countries with whom we work. We have actually very little offices in some of European countries. Now, of course, in Kiev, we have in Georgia, we have in Moldova, we have in Geneva, in Vienna, in New York. We have an office right now in Kuwait, and we will be opening soon. It was a decision taken in Washington, an office in Amman, but it will be the first political office actually in the MENA region. So we really need their support to understand better how things are evolving. And that's part of the plan. The plan is really an eye-to-eye conversation, two-way street where we understand each other, where we both benefit from the things that we do. Some of these countries could be security providers, even if it's regional security providers or neighborhood security providers. Others are actually countries that provide a lot in terms of the global scene, and that is particularly relevant. We are in a world of geostrategic competition, is a world of where there is a very strong battle of narratives today. The global scene is not Europe. The global scene is a larger scene that you could probably identify more clearly with the UN and New York. And you need as many friends as possible. So I think it's always valuable to continue to have conversations with all of these partners. Those partners bring a lot and could bring definitely even more in the future.
Thank you. And some of the countries which are engulfed currently in armed conflicts are not part of neither the MD or Istanbul Initiative. For example, Libya, of course, Syria, and Lebanon, and then at the same time, I know that Saudi Arabia and Oman have participated in some activities of the Istanbul Cooperation Initiative. So the question is, do you expect that some other countries might also join the initiative, or NATO could somehow expand its activities to other countries in the region?
Well, first, as I said, the action plan that is quite detailed on the things that I could do and the things that NATO could actually explore gives me the option to explore relationships with other actors that I believe could be impactful in the way we work with the South. We already have, as you rightly said, a relationship through our education center in Kuwait with Saudi Arabia and Oman. We do have political dialogue going on with these countries. We have also contact here and there with other actors in the Southern Neighbourhood, and we will continue to have those. But those are not necessarily meant for these countries to become partners of the organization. It's just countries that we believe it could be beneficial for both of us to sustain a political dialogue. We don't do practical cooperation with countries that are not partners of the organization. We only have a dialogue with them. In the future, it might happen that some of these countries decide to become partners. There's been a couple of requests by countries in the global south, I would say, and we'll have to look into those. It's always a thorough process. The allies need to really be convinced about the value of the partnership. The partner needs to really be convinced about the value in a state commitment, not a government commitment. Is a process that takes usually even a couple of years, because we look into their military capabilities, their political capabilities, what could be actually a match between NATO and those countries. But as I said, regardless of the fact that many won't be looking at becoming partners, and we don't need that to happen, we are not chasing anyone. Usually it's on the other direction. They're partners that want to become countries that want to become partners. We will continue to have relationships with other countries in the Southern Neighbourhood that, in our opinion and in my own personal view, could be impacting favorably our relationship with the Southern Neighbourhood.
Right, thank you. And another question I wish to ask is about NATO's public image. And why I'm asking that, when it comes to NATO, it's often associated with the United States. And there are also some other countries with, negative history when it comes to Africa and other regions. I mean, colonialism. And does this factor anyhow play a part, or is NATO not associated with the sins that are attributed to the United States and, say, France and the United Kingdom and some others?
Well, we are very aware of the fact that the West in general has a difficult image in many of these countries. It's not just NATO, it's not just the US, it's not just France. The European Union has also been suffering from that from time to time. It might be a bit more acute when you talk about, as you said, NATO or the US, because of some recent episodes in Africa. But at the end of the day, one of the pillars I said that we need to reinforce is actually the public communication one, the visibility one, try to fight perceptions that are, most of them, misperceptions. We need to talk with these countries, we need to visit these countries, we need to travel to try to understand each other's. Usually the establishment of these countries are all very convinced about the need to cooperate with NATO. It's more about trying to talk with students and the population, trying to get to those. I've been actually quite active on public communication in my first couple of months, giving interviews here and there, conferences whenever I visit a country in the south. There is a lot to do. I don't think we will be able to clear the air in every one of the misperceptions that there are in the world. That is too complex. I don't think it's the objective. What we need to do is to work properly and to see eye to eye on the things that are beneficial for both sides.
And as we approach the end of our engagement, as we speak from Riga and you're in Brussels, so could you make a pitch, so for the people in the Baltic region, as to why also we should care about things that happen in the south of NATO, because obviously we care predominantly about Ukraine, about Russia's aggression in Ukraine and possible aggression against the Baltic states. So why should people here in the Baltics care about the southern neighborhood?
Well, there are different reasons, I would say. First, NATO is an organization that is based on solidarity, because collective defense is based on solidarity. Without solidarity, you don't have collective defense. Without collective defense, you don't have NATO. And NATO, I believe, is a very, very important organization, and Article 5 is a very important article for every Baltic nation, for every ally that I represent. And solidarity means a 360 degrees approach. It means that we need to cover threats and challenges that come from all strategic directions, from the east, from the north, and from the south. It was very clear in the last 3-4 years. We started with a new military strategy. We started with new military plans, the regional plans that we call, and those are actually plans that cover all geographic directions. So I do believe that even if it's just because of that, it should be a priority for every country in the alliance, whatever happens in any of the strategic directions. But second, as I said before, some of the threats that we see in the east are very present in the south, particularly Russia. And I know how relevant that threat is for our Baltic friends. And I have a very strong relationship with the ambassadors here in Brussels. I understand where they're coming from. They understand why the South is relevant, and is relevant for many reasons. But the two I mentioned, I think, should be enough to convince the normal population to understand why it's important to go for that 360 degrees approach, why it's important that the Italians or the Spaniards look into the East, help into the Baltic nations, for instance, in terms of airspace, and how relevant is that our Baltic friends or our Nordic friends help with southern matters. And it is what is happening, because the organization we represent is very efficient in doing that. Is all about solidarity, is all about collective defense, and collective defense is linked with the cooperative security. That is the activities that we do with all our partners that help bring stability in the region, and that stability projects stability in the Euro-Atlantic area.
Thank you. I think these are also very important points that you made, and also this episode will help our viewers and listeners to understand the importance of also the southern neighborhood. With that, we have talked about different issues on southern neighborhoods, and I thank you very much for joining us for our episode of Riga Security Forum, and we wish you all the best with your duties with the South, with the Mediterranean Dialogue, Istanbul Cooperation Initiative, and we hope that this will enhance the collective security of NATO. Thank you very much, and see you on that occasion.
Thank you very much, and thanks very much for having me, and good luck with the Riga Security Forum. Thanks.
Goodbye.